What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? Why Ketel Marte needs to be starting in the MLB All-Star Game.
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm currently a free agent looking for my next opportunity, so please check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. If you want to see more content by me, just follow me on Twitter at CareerThomas24 for the personal account, Millard.Thomas123 for the personal Instagram, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. On today's show, we'll be talking about Ketel Marte's All-Star case. Can the Dbacks climb back, potentially win the NL West? And we'll preview the upcoming East Coast trip that the Dbacks have next against the Washington Nationals and then against the Philadelphia Phillies. Before we get into any of that, thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube, so please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. Our goal is to hit 2,000 subs by the All-Star break. So once again, please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked on MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, let's get into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, and let's talk about the All-Star game because we got the first wave of ballots come in, and the closest positional race right now in either league is the National League second base position between Ketel Marte and Luis Arraez. Currently, Arraez leads it by like 4,000 votes, something like super minuscule. Ketel Marte is currently second in the first wave of voting, but I'm here to tell you it should be clearly Ketel Marte that starts the MLB All-Star game. And I'll say this, Luis Arraez is having a very good season. He is a very good option to start the second base for the National League. So I won't be too upset if Arraez beats out Ketel Marte because Arraez is a really good player, but I think the numbers tell you it should clearly be Ketel Marte as the starting second baseman, and we're going to lay out the case for you right now. First off, Ketel Marte having an incredible season. If you just look at the peripheral traditional numbers, 283 average, 852 OPS, 14 home runs, like Ketel Marte is having himself a really strong offensive year. You can make the argument that he's having a better offensive season than he did even last year. A lot of the traditional numbers are similar, but one thing that Ketel Marte is doing a lot better this season than he was last year is just overall the hard contact stats. When you look at it for Ketel Marte, he is crushing the ball this season. Last year, according to Baseball Reference, his exit velo was 90.9 miles per hour. Hard hit percentage, 42.8%. Like, those are two very elite numbers already, whether it's Ketel Marte or any player. Over a 90 exit velo, over 40% hard hit percentage. Like, those are very great numbers. But Marte this season has even turned it up another notch. Career high in exit velo, 93.1 miles per hour right now. Career high in hard hit percentage, 53.8%. Ketel Marte is crushing the ball right now, and he's tapping into a level of power that we haven't seen him display up until this point of his career. And right now, he has been such a positive impact contributor on this D-backs offense. We, of course, know the hitting streak they had this season. Like, Marte has been pretty consistent from the jump with his offensive contributions to this team. One thing that's kind of weird when we look at the Marte numbers, the left side of the plate, he's not really doing too good he's not doing too good from the left side of the plate as a left-handed hitter. He's kind of struggling in that area. Only a 249 average, 677 OPS as a lefty, But as a righty, that's where his numbers are looking magnificent and looking MVP like. 343 average, 1167 OPS when he's batting from the right side of the plate. So for Ketel Marte, if you're an opposing pitcher, you definitely want to put a right-handed pitcher on the mound if you're going against Ketel Marte, because he's way better from the right side of the plate as a right-handed batter as opposed to the other side right now. But even with that being said, even with his massive splits in the platoon, like Ketel Marte is just such a dominating force at the plate. And when you look at his numbers compared to the rest of the position, because I think that's what you really have to talk about when you're doing this exercise, of course, who should start the MLB All-Star game, you have to see what the rest of the field is looking like. And outside of Luis Ariz, I don't really know if anyone else even has an argument to make the MLB All-Star game over Ketel Marte at second base. Ketel Marte, I think, should be running away with it right now because that's what the numbers tell you. According to WRC Plus, Ketel Marte is number one among second basemen in the National League. He is the best offensive player in the National League, according to WRC Plus. According to Offensive War, he is also the best player in the National League. Offensively, Ketel Marte is crushing it this season at the plate. But it's not just the offense for Ketel Marte. The other area of his game that he's really grown this year that really solidifies his argument to start the MLB All-Star game is the fact that his defense is so elite this season. You look at defensive runs saved. He has more defensive runs saved than any other player in baseball, not just at second base, but regardless of the position. 11 defensive runs saved this year at second. The next closest guy at second is 7 with Bryce Terang. Like, Ketel Marte is running away with that. Ultimate zone rating, Ketel Marte is number 1. He's second in outs above average. Marte, basically any defensive stat you click on, he's going to be top 2, top 3. Ranger, second in that one as well. You click on the defense stat on Fangraphs, he's second in that. Like, he's literally first or second in every defensive category. The numbers defensively, the advanced stats, love what Ketel Marte has done this season. You combine that with the fact that his bat slightly better than what it was last year, tapping into a little bit more of a power department with his still overall consistency and contact ability that he brings to the game every single day. Ketel Marte is giving you the full package this year. Luis Ariz, I just don't think he's done more than a Ketel Marte. He's a great hitter, but the other parts of his game, that power department, he is just not doing enough compared to a Ketel Marte. Luis Ariz has a 400 slugging right now on the season. Ketel Marte has a 500 slugging. He just does so much more from you in terms of the extra base hits, in terms of the power. Like, Ariz is a great hitter, but he's a singles machine. Marte's giving you doubles, triples, home runs. There's just so much more power in the bat of a Ketel Marte. And you combine that with the fact that he has the best glove at his position right now. I don't think there's any debate that Ketel Marte should be the starting second baseman in the 2024 MLB All-Star game. And now we'll talk about if the Dbacks can climb back in the division with the Dodgers dealing with some injuries in segment number 2. And if you're going to buy any tickets for any upcoming Dbacks games, the best place you want to go, of course, is going to be Game Time, because Game Time is the best spot for last minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy theater, and more. Flash deals save you even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Zone deals save you even more when you choose a section and you let Game Time choose the seats. All-in pricing shows you your total cost upfront with no surprise fees at checkouts. Even get the lowest price guarantee on Game Time. And Game Time, if you find a better deal, will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy to use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouses.com's free Trademaster program. Every Trademaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouses.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's discuss if the D-backs have a chance of climbing back and potentially winning this division. Now, I know that sounds crazy. D-backs 8.5 games back, winning the NL West. What are you talking about, Millie? But I only asked the question because all of a sudden, the Dodgers are way more vulnerable. You look at that Dodgers team, and they are starting to deal with some injuries. Mookie Betts fractured his hand. We don't know how long, but it could potentially be. That feels like a 6 to 8 week injury, maybe 2.5 months. I don't know. Yamamoto, they put him on the 15-day injured list, but it sounds like Dave Roberts said he's going to miss some significant time. Maybe not the whole season, but maybe another 6 to 8 weeks or more for Yamamoto. If you're down those two guys, you're down to Max Muncy. Walker Buehler hasn't exactly gotten it going to the level that we know Buehler could be at. Kershaw still out. Like, you're dealing with a whole bunch of injuries. The healthiest rotation starter you have is Tyler Glass now, who is at this point is coming up on the highest inning pitch total he's ever had in a season. Like, he's at 93 innings pitched right now. I think his career has like 120. Like, can Glass now survive the whole year? I don't know. Right now, the Dodgers, they've spent a lot of money this offseason. They built a formidable team. They have a lot of stars. But with all the injuries, they are a little vulnerable. And listen, if any team can withstand injuries, it's probably the Dodgers. You still got Will Smith, Freddie Freeman. You still got Teoscar Hernandez, Otani, like just that four. If you told any team you can have that four in your lineup, they would be like, oh, this is the greatest team that we've ever put on paper. That's the Dodgers four without the Muncies and the Mookie Betts of the world. Like, that's how nasty their lineup is. I don't have any preconceived notions that this offense still won't be able to score runs. Like, I think even without the Mookies and the Muncies, the Dodgers offense is going to be fine. It's the pitching where I think the Dodgers can be very vulnerable. Their bullpen is very good, but their starting rotation is down bad in terms of their health, very reminiscent of the D-backs. It makes me wonder if the Dodgers go into a little bit of a slump, a little bit of a tailspin. Could the D-backs take advantage and climb in this division? Out checking June 17th, 2023, what were the standings looking like? The D-backs were leading the division at this point last year by 4 games over the Dodgers. And of course, the Dodgers still ended up winning the NL West by the end of 2023. Part of it was because the D-backs went in a big second half slump and the Dodgers took advantage of that, right? And so for the D-backs, can they take advantage of a potential Dodgers slump that could be coming with all these injuries? The Dodgers last year took advantage of the second half D-backs who were awful. If the Dodgers are missing Mookie Betts and Yamamoto and a bunch of guys for extended period of time as the D-backs get healthier around the All-Star break, could they take advantage in the second half of the season? That's what I want to know. Right now, the D-backs offense is playing much better. They are the best offense in the National League right now. So with them playing better, could it lead to them winning more games? They've won 10 of their last 15 games because their offense has been playing so well. Can their offense keep it going with the schedule starting to open up a little bit right now as well? Like, as we've been saying, part of the reason why this D-backs offense is playing well is because the schedule is also easier. And going forward for the rest of June, we've talked about on this podcast, We like the schedule, right? We're going against the Washington Nationals next, which will preview that series in segment number 3. You got the Phillies after that. That's going to be tough. But then the Twins and A's to end the rest of the month. Like the D-backs have a good chance for the rest of June to win 3 of the next 4 series. And if you could do that, that would look fantastic in the wild card and division standings. And then guess what? After the month of June, do you know how you start the month of July? The first series in the month of July, is against the LA Dodgers. So you could potentially win 3 of the next 4 series. You could see the Dodgers dealing with a little bit of a slump, potentially dealing with some struggles because of the fact of all the injuries that they're dealing with. It could be a little low point of their season by the time the D-backs face them that first week of July. Maybe the Dodgers are struggling a little bit. Maybe it's the perfect time to take advantage against the Dodgers if the D-backs face off against them the first week of July. Listen, the D-backs themselves aren't going to be in the best position if Zach Gallen is not at least back by the first week of July. But potentially the Dodgers could be more down bad than the D-backs that first week of July, because at least the D-backs, I mean, they've been dealing with injuries all season. They're more used to it, I guess, at this point of the year. I don't know how used to it the Dodgers will be by the time the first week of July hits. So I'm hoping the D-backs can take advantage of that series against the Dodgers. Then right after the Dodgers, the D-backs face off against the San Diego Padres. And so this schedule for the rest of June, and then the way it starts off in July, it sets up perfectly for the D-backs to climb in the wild card race and climb in the division. It's not going to be easy. If any team can survive without their stars, it's going to be a still loaded Dodgers team. But for the D-backs, I just need them to be within 4 games of the Dodgers come the All-Star break. If they can do that, because I think there is a world where it's possible with the way the D-backs offense has been playing, with the injuries to the Dodgers, the fact that the schedule opens up the month of June, and then you get to face the Dodgers and Padres in July. There is a world where the D-backs could be within 4 games of the All-Star, within 4 games of the Dodgers come the All-Star break. And if that's possible, if that ends up happening, I do think the D-backs could be in line. I do think there's a path for the D-backs to win the NL West, because if Yamamoto and Mookie Betts are going to be out for an extended period of time post All-Star break, as the D-backs get Kelly, Erod, and Gallen back right after the break, why can't the D-backs go on a run in the second half of the season and steal the division away from the Dodgers, just like they did to the D-backs in 2023? That's what I want to see the D-backs do. Just get to within 4 games of the Dodgers at the All-Star break, get healthy in the second half of the season, and then let's see this team go on a run and potentially steal the division. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but I do think it's at least a fun thought exercise, and I do think there's a small percentage that the D-backs can still win the NL West, despite the D-backs being 8.5 games back at the time of me recording this podcast. And now we'll talk about how the D-backs can at least climb in the wildcard standings as they face off against the Washington Nationals, and we'll discuss that in segment number 3. But if you want to make money on America's #1 fantasy sports app, then the place you need to go is, of course, Prize Picks, because Prize Picks has more than 5 million members. It is the most fun, exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. With Prize Picks, you can turn $10 into 1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks a lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats projections, and you're locked in. There's always action on Prize Picks, and this is the perfect time to try out something new as basketball is winding down. Make sure to try out esports this month, because for every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup doesn't win, you'll get your entry fee back. Choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. Right now, go to Prize Picks if you want to win some money, because I love winning money on Prize Picks, and it brings a big smile to my face. you want a big smile on your face, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app, use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast and let's discuss the upcoming East Coast trip for the D-backs because they got a little opponent in the Washington Nationals up next. And it's another opportunity for the D-backs to get a potential series win over a team that they are going to be facing in this wild card standings because credit to the Nationals. They have been fine at this point in the season. They are about 35 and 36. They have been playing decent baseball this year, right there, keeping pace with the D-backs and the other mediocre teams in the National League. The Nationals, I think, are a team where the D-backs should win the series. The D-backs should win the series, but they can't take this Nationals team lightly. I think they have a lot of promising young talent. I don't think the Nationals are there just yet, but I think in a couple of years, this team could be really formidable in the National League. And even at this point right now, the Nationals do have a half game lead on the D-backs. So they are a better team than Arizona by the record, even though on paper, I think the D-backs are a better team. When I look at this national team, I really like the young talent, as I mentioned, specifically in their starting rotation. I think they have a bunch of guys who I think could really blossom into potential all-stars in the future. Jake Irvin's having a very good season. We'll see him in this series in game number 1 against Slade Cecconi. We're going to see Mackenzie Gore in the finale of this series against Ryan Nelson. Those two guys are absolute studs. Mitchell Parker is also having himself a good season as well for the Nationals. Like there's at least 3 guys that you really like in that rotation. And then in the lineup, CJ Abrams also having himself a very good year as well at the plate. Is he having himself a fantastic year? No, but he's only 23 years old and he's on the rise. I do think what the Nationals got back in that Juan Soto deal, I do think they got some very good pieces back. I do think we could look back at that Juan Soto deal and say, you know what? That was actually one of the best returns that we've seen in recent memory because to get back a Mackenzie Gore, to get back a CJ Abrams, like those were, did they get back CJ Abrams? I thought they got back. To get back Mackenzie Gore and CJ Abrams, I was like double checking the transaction right now as I was talking. To get back CJ Gore and Mackenzie, or CJ Abrams and Mackenzie Gore in the Juan Soto deal, like those are 2 legit pillars of a franchise they got back. And they still got potential other top prospects in a James Wood, who could be coming up pretty soon, who has been crushing it in the minor leagues. Like if you look at his AAA stats right now, they're pretty insane for James Wood. He's another top, fringe top 10 prospect that's going to be called up by the Nationals from that Juan Soto deal. Robert Hansel, he was another top 100 prospect. He could get called up pretty soon by the Washington Nationals as well. Like they are loaded with young talent. I think 2 years from now, they are going to be very tough to deal with. But right now, I think this national team is very vulnerable, and this D-backs team should beat them. Despite the young talent, this D-backs team has way more proven talent, and that is why they should handle business. This Nationals pitching staff is very good. You can't sleep on the pitchers. They do a great job of limiting damage. When you look at the pitching staff for the Nationals, they don't give up a ton of walks or home runs allowed. They're top 3 in both of those stats. They are not giving up over the fence power. They're not just going to give up 4 walks and put dudes on the base and create jams for themselves and then give up the long ball. Like the Nationals are a very clean, fundamental team who plays just solid baseball. And when we look at that pitching staff, they do a great job of limiting damage. But one guy in that staff who doesn't limit damage is the guy who we're going to see in game number 2, Patrick Corbin, former friend of the D-backs. So very excited to see how he looked against Brandon Pfaadt in game number 2. That's the game that I'm guaranteeing that the D-backs win because Patrick Corbin is horrendous and he's finally on that last year of that mega contract that the Nationals totally regret giving him. And I think this series mostly boils down to if the D-back starters can match the Nationals pitchers, they should win this series because the D-backs offense is just better than the Nationals offense. Yes, the Nationals pitching is good, but I don't know if it's good enough to overcome some of the lack of execution by the Nationals offense. The Nationals offense is bottom 3 in runs, home runs, and OPS in the National League. Then meanwhile, this D-backs offense currently in the month of June, the best offense in the National League. Can the Washington pitching staff slow that down? D-backs offense number 1 in runs scored, second in home runs, first in OPS, first in WRC plus, first in WAR. Across the board, I think they're also like second or third in stolen bases. Like across the board, this D-backs offense has been crushing it in the month of June. And if the pitchers for the D-backs can just match up with the pitchers of the Nationals, I think the D-backs offense is going to take care of business and win them this series. Will they sweep? Probably not, because the D-backs don't like to do that. They only done it once this year against the Washington Nationals, but I do think they will take at least 2 out of 3 against Washington. And one other little factor that I do think could help out the D-backs potentially, it's a weird theory that I'm working with, but there's a heat wave coming to the East Coast, and I want to believe that the Arizona team should be able to handle themselves in the heat wave. Yes, I know they play in an AC controlled environment in a dome when they do play at their home ballpark, but this is still guys who every single day has to wake up and walk outside in 100+ degree weather. Like their daily lives are still spent in pretty extreme heat. And so I just want to assume that their bodies are just going to be more adjusted to that heat in that East Coast. Yes, it might be that humid heat going to Washington. It's not going to be that Arizona dry heat, but I want to still believe that the D-backs team is going to be better equipped for a heat wave than the Washington Nationals. So that's my little working theory. The heat wave is actually going to help out the D-backs, and maybe it even helps out the number 1 offense in the league by adding, or the number 1 offense in June by adding even more power with the Heat coming to Washington. So that's my little working theory. D-backs, I think, are going to win the series and take at least 2 out of 3 against the Washington Nationals. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. We'll be back at it tomorrow, of course. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.